A nightmare in broad daylight. A gunman invades a one-room schoolhouse in Pennsylvania Dutch country.
He bound the female victims out by the blackboard and apparently executed them.
In a place where time has always stood still, a modern-day horror.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Hello, everyone. It's a terrible story. Things like this are not supposed to happen, especially there, Pennsylvania's pastoral Amish country, where people live as they have for hundreds of years, insulated from the modern world and the crime that goes with it. But today it was the unlikely setting for an unimaginable crime. A man armed with 2 guns and only the vaguest of motives invaded a one-room schoolhouse in Lancaster County, then terrorized and executed several young girls. National correspondent Byron Pitts begins our coverage tonight. Byron?
Well, Katie, we've just received a photograph of the shooter. Take a look. Charles Roberts, a local man, 32 years old. Authorities tell us there were 8 survivors, all girls, all in critical condition, all victims of a shooting no one here expected. For centuries, they had lived separate from the rest of the world. But today, the world's attention focused on them. Mass murder inside a one-room Amish schoolhouse.
I never thought it would happen in a peaceful community like this.
At least 6 schoolgirls, ages 6 to 13, all shot execution style. 2 girls killed instantly. A third died in the state trooper's arms. The gunman, a local milk truck driver, killed himself.
It appears, because the suspect had with him an automatic handgun and a shotgun, it appears to us that he was utilizing the automatic handgun at that time in quick succession.
It all started at approximately 9:51 this morning. The gunman, 32-year-old Charles Carl Roberts IV, parked his pickup outside Nickel Mines Amish School. Besides the 2 guns, Roberts carried inside flex cuffs, wire, and enough 2x4s and 2x6s to board all the exits. For the next 45 minutes, he terrorized about 25 students and teachers in this single room about the size of a 2-car garage. There was no place to hide, no way to escape.
He split them up, males and females. He let the males go. He let some of the adults go. He bound the female victims out by the blackboard and apparently executed them.
At 10:36 a.m., one teacher ran to a nearby farmhouse and called police. 9 minutes later, 10:45, the first state troopers arrived. A short time later, Roberts opened fire.
The troopers broke the windows and were able to get in, found the suspect dead on the floor of the schoolhouse.
Authorities found what they described as a suicide note at Roberts' home in the neighboring town of Bart. He had apparently worked his shift last night at the local milk plant. This morning, he took his own children to the bus stop. Minutes before the fatal shooting, he called his wife from inside the school on his cell phone.
He did make a statement to his wife on the phone that he was acting out in a way to achieve revenge for something that happened 20 years ago. And I think that the location, the school, was probably chosen because it provided a close opportunity, an opportunity to attack where he knew he had young kids.
So tonight, no clear motive, no way for families in this closed community to make sense of it all. Here where people value faith and family and humility, they will need all 3. As the press conference wraps up tonight, authorities tell us that Roberts had 600 rounds of ammunition and a change of clothes. Katie, he was prepared for this to go on for a while.
And Byron, he took his own kids to the bus stop first. It's so hard to understand. Do we know anything more about this guy?
Yeah. Well, Katie, we talked to one of his neighbors who described Roberts as a quiet man, a church-going man, married with 3 kids, all under the ages of 10. He kept to himself until today. Katie?
All right, Byron Pitts, thanks very much. As the first word of this school shooting spread across the country, the reaction everywhere was the same. Not again. This was the 3rd school shooting in the past week, and as they always do, it brought back memories of Columbine. But this was no Columbine. As Lee Cowan reports, we're seeing a whole new kind of school attack.
Over the years, they've been the pictures from schools that terrify parents and give otherwise invincible teenagers reason to pause. But what we've seen unfold both today in Pennsylvania and last week in Colorado is something entirely different. These aren't Columbine-style killings planned and executed by students. These are outsiders using schools as a target of their rage.
It's a new kind of threat for us in the last 4 or 5 years.
And a puzzling one at that. Dwayne Morrison was a drifter who police say wandered into this high school in Bailey, Colorado last week and molested 6 girls and killed 1. He left behind a 14-page letter that made no reference to the school or young girls. Today it was young female students again who were the victims. And again there was a note talking about a grudge, but no clear reason why an Amish school would be targeted. None of it makes any sense, and even former FBI profilers say they fear these kind of criminals the most, because often there are no warning signs.
When the threat is external, as it was in this case, it's very difficult for schools, if not actually impossible, to foresee something like this coming.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
Schools are an easy target, in large measure because of what they are. Open places of learning, not locked-down facilities. School districts have spent millions installing metal detectors, surveillance cameras. Many of them have limited entry and exit points, and some have even run school shooting simulations, like this one near Chicago. But just where do you stop?
I wish we wouldn't have to turn our schools into places that simply had to be defended and where you had to constantly be on guard, but that seems to be the new watchword for 2006.
Especially if it can happen in a one-room schoolhouse in rural Pennsylvania where a locked door is all anyone thought they needed. Lee Cowan, CBS News, Dallas.
Let's turn now to an expert on school safety. Dennis McCarthy is a former special agent for the Secret Service and now director of security for a Kansas school district with 20,000 students. Dennis, when I heard about this story, it made me literally sick to my stomach. What was your reaction?
I was very disturbed about today's incident as well as last week's incident in Colorado, when we now are seeing people from outside of our schools coming into school to commit such a murder.
There were some similarities apparently between what happened today and the event that transpired in Bailey, Colorado. In both situations, the girls were reportedly lined up in front of the blackboard. Do you think this was a copycat situation in Pennsylvania today?
I truly believe it's very likely that the person who committed the violence today was watching the news and saw what happened in Colorado. There are distinct similarity in those two situations, so I'm afraid that there could be some imitation going on.
Are rural schools more vulnerable, or do you think that maybe they think they aren't vulnerable because they are in rural areas and feel, oh gosh, it can't happen here?
I think exactly that. Our urban schools are used to being in very crowded areas with a lot of activity and sirens going by for whatever reasons in the cities. And then we get out into our rural areas where there is not nearly the activity. And I think there's a false sense of security, that the perception is it can't happen here. But we always hear after these incidents, why didn't we see this coming? Why didn't we do something? Why weren't we proactive?
And of course, the price of young lives that have been cut tragically short. And you think of how terrifying that must have been for those little girls who were lined up in front of the blackboard, and you just don't know what to say.
Yeah, the years I spent protecting presidents doesn't compare to the feeling of protecting kids. You know, it's so important, and something that we probably as a nation need to spend more time on and consider a way to effectively do this, to maintain safe academic environments for our kids so they can get done what they're there for, and that is to learn and to grow up.
Dennis McCarthy, thank you so much for your insights tonight.
Thank you.
And we'll have more on this later in the broadcast, including a closer look at the Amish, a curiosity and a mystery to so many. And there's more information about how schools can keep your children safe on our website at cbsnews.com. Coming up next, the growing scandal over an ex-congressman's emails and why House Republican leaders may be getting very nervous.